Tonight, we are not just talking about a family. We are talking about political technology. Before you get comfortable, like the video and subscribe if you genuinely enjoy long-form historical breakdowns. And tell me where you're watching from, because the story we're about to discuss does not belong only to Britain. The monarchy shaped borders, languages, trade networks, famines, migrations, and wars across nearly every inhabited continent. By the early 19th century, something unusual had happened. The British monarchy was no longer primarily important because of what it ruled inside Britain. It mattered because of what ruled through it. Britain was industrializing faster than any society in human history. Steam engines powered factories, railroads shrank distances, and naval engineering allowed ships to cross oceans regularly rather than seasonally. This created a new kind of state power, logistical power. And logistics needs legitimacy. You can conquer a territory militarily, but maintaining trade routes, collecting taxes, and extracting resources requires a structure people recognize as lawful. The monarchy became the legal face of imperial expansion. It did not personally administer colonies day to day, but it authorized the system that did. Royal charters created companies. Companies created administrations. Administrations created colonial governments. The crown became the legal root of a planetary bureaucracy. Then came Queen Victoria. Victoria, not just a queen, but a political rebrand. When Victoria became queen in 1837, the monarchy had a public relations problem. The previous kings, especially George IV and William IV, were associated with scandal, extravagance, debt, and political interference. Many British citizens increasingly viewed monarchy as expensive and unnecessary in an age of elected government. The institution was at risk of becoming obsolete. Victoria unintentionally solved this. She was young, disciplined, and carefully managed by advisors, particularly Prince Albert. Together, they reshaped the monarchy's public image from political ruler to moral family. This was revolutionary. Before Victoria, kings were expected to display power. After Victoria, monarchs were expected to display virtue. Portraits showed domestic life. Newspapers described her as a devoted wife and mother. The royal family became a model household rather than a governing authority. This was not merely cultural, it was strategic. Industrial Britain was experiencing massive urbanization, child labor, dangerous factories, and severe inequality. Social tensions were rising. Symbolic ideal family at the top of society provided emotional stability during economic upheaval. The monarchy was repositioned as a moral center. In other words, Victoria did not strengthen monarchy by ruling more. She strengthened it by appearing less political. The crown and the civilizing mission, but Victoria's importance extended far beyond Britain. In 1876, she was proclaimed Empress of India. This title matters enormously. India was not simply another colony. It was the most economically valuable territory in the British Empire. Millions of people lived under British rule, and maintaining authority over such a vast population required justification beyond military presence. The solution was ideological. British imperial policy increasingly framed empire as a civilizing mission. Officials argued they were bringing law, railways, education, and order to supposedly less developed societies. The monarchy became the human face of this narrative. Here's the critical point. The empire often operated through violence and economic extraction, but the monarch symbolized benevolence. For many in Britain, Victoria represented care and guardianship. For many colonized populations, Crown represented distant authority whose policies shaped their lives without their participation. Famines in India during British rule, particularly in the late 19th century, killed millions. These famines were worsened by imperial economic policies that prioritized export crops and market stability over local food security. Yet responsibility was bureaucratically distributed through administrators, companies, and colonial offices. The monarch remained symbolically above direct blame. This is one of the monarchy's most significant structural advantages. It authorizes systems without appearing personally accountable for their outcomes. Symbolic power across continents. The monarchy's authority traveled in subtle ways. Coins bore the monarch's face. Courtrooms used the monarch's name. Soldiers swore oaths to the crown. In Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, the monarch became the legal embodiment of the state. Even today, criminal prosecutions in some Commonwealth countries are formally brought in the name of the crown. This means the monarch exists not only as a person, but as a legal concept. Lawyers call this the crown in parliament, or the crown in law. The crown is therefore both human and institutional. A king or queen may die, but the crown never does. This legal continuity is why governments change while the state remains intact. The monarchy functions as a permanent placeholder for sovereignty. Political leaders exercise power, but they do so on behalf of the crown. It is essentially a vessel that holds the idea of the state itself. Why many people accepted it? We should pause and ask a real question. Why did so many people, including some colonized elites, accept monarchy? Part of the answer lies in administrative practicality. The empire incorporated local rulers into its system. Princes in India, chiefs in Africa, and colonial administrators were often allowed to govern locally while acknowledging the crown's supremacy. This created layered sovereignty. Local authority remained visible, but ultimate authority was distant. Another reason was predictability. Compared to rapidly changing political governments, a hereditary monarch provided continuity. For merchants, landowners, and officials, continuity meant contracts remained valid and property remained recognized.
Nice.
The monarchy acted as a guarantee. Even critics sometimes preferred a stable, symbolic authority to uncertain political change. This does not mean empire was broadly welcomed. Resistance movements existed across the empire. Rebellions, independence campaigns, and anti-colonial thinkers repeatedly challenged British rule. But the monarchy's survival depended on something subtle. It did not need universal support.
Oh.
It needed sufficient acceptance among administrators and institutions to maintain operation. And for over a century, it achieved that. The emotional architecture of empire here is something important. Empires require distance. A soldier or a tax collector can be seen and resisted. A distant sovereign is abstract. Abstraction softens political anger. The monarch became a figure onto which different groups could project different meanings. In Britain, a national symbol. In colonies, a remote authority. In diplomacy, a stable representative. This emotional flexibility helped the monarchy survive criticism directed at imperial policy. Governments could change colonial strategy while the crown remained constant. The monarchy functioned like a ceiling above politics. Disputes occurred beneath it, and this arrangement would become even more important in the 20th century when the empire began to collapse.